Hello and welcome to today's Positive Future podcast. And we have an unusual one because we have lovely Sue, who's going to be talking all about who she is. Who the hell is Sue? How does she know anything? Who is she? Why are we listening to her? And Sue is our wonderful resident astrologer. Do you say astrologist or astrologer? So astrologist.
Astrologer.
Astrologer, and she is. We are very, very lucky in PainFree. Sue's offered a monthly course, a year course with monthly calls, and tomorrow is the next lesson, all about astrology. And she has incredible wisdom and just an encyclopedia of astrology. And it's for beginners or refreshers, or perhaps top up people topping up with their knowledge. If you're like me, interested in astrology but don't know a great deal about it, no, don't know details, then this is the course for you. It's free. What do you got to lose? And it's also backed up by WhatsApp group. But well, I'm going to be put the links with this recording. So tonight is all about, well, who is Sue? Why is she doing that? And where does she come from? Over to you, sweetheart. Tell us all about yourself.
Well, hi guys. My story starts on the 22nd of February 1966 in Sydney, Australia, when I was born. My father was a fellow Piscean and my mum was Virgo. I have an older brother who I do not get on with. We're very different people. But I sort of felt like a cuckoo. I didn't really fit in the family. I was always a strong-willed individual. Um, I never really needed a lot of encouragement. I was quite self-sufficient, and now I understand that I'm neuro sparkly. In my 50s, I was diagnosed and had some brain surgery because I had a fifth of my right parietal lobe squashed by a cyst. Arachnoid cysts are congenital, in other words, you're born with it. So retrospectively, I think that cyst was responsible for me being socially not connecting. I've always felt like I never connected. I still don't today, but that's okay. I'm dyslexic. I can't see numbers and letters in my mind, but I have this strange capacity to just verbally speak and the information is found. I don't learn through reading. I learn through discussion, group talk, osmosis. I can absorb information from my environment just by being in it.
You're like a
So
robot and suck it all up, suck the
it,
information up.
yeah, it's weird.
Great for
Um,
exams.
yeah, I'm good at point form, but I can't write an essay. So I can't write an essay, therefore I didn't go into university. Uh, but nowadays that would be recognized and I'd get the help. Now, the strangest things happened. I had a visitation when I was about 3. I think I was about 3. Um, but I was lying in bed and I remember waking up and the orange lights coming through my bedroom window. So my bed is against the wall and my face was facing out my door. My window was to my left. And I remember getting out of bed, walking over to the window, and then turning around and seeing 3 figures walk into the room. I felt myself fall to the floor, but I woke up in bed. What was happened then, I don't know, but twice that happened. Another time I remember waking up and looking at my bedroom window again with orange lights, and her voice, disembodied voice, says, "Don't worry, that's just a volcano." Now to a small kid, that seemed perfectly reasonable.
Yes.
And I went back to sleep. Um, my mother never really understood me. My father and I had a connection being both Pisceans, but I grew up
Hang on,
feeling very,
let's go back to the visitation. The visitation, what?
I have no idea who they were.
Yeah.
Um, to this day, they were just figures. I don't know whether they had red eyes, green eyes, glowing eyes, but I didn't, my gut feeling was not malevolent. It was certainly not a negative experience.
So you
The
weren't
only
frightened because you're only 3 years old. a little dot, weren't you? And
Yeah, but we underestimate the capacity for children to have psychic understanding of, because fear is a natural biological response. I had no fear, so therefore, what I was picking up was that they're friends, not foe. I
well,
have
Trina,
no idea what took place in those visitations. I've had several readings where they're like, no, you don't need to know. And I'm like, okay, because I'm the type of person that I don't need to understand the ins and outs of absolutely everything.
ah,
Uh, I just think, yeah, how does that feel? That feels right. Yeah, don't need to know. Next, moving right along.
mm,
So I didn't so like stew on it. I didn't harbor it. I just let it go.
mm,
Because if you let things go, there's a saying, let go and to God, universe, trust. And at 3 years old, you don't have any reason not to trust. But I
yeah.
never had any malicious feeling, no malicious intent.
So
I've always,
this happened a lot then, or just those couple of times?
those are my only memories.
Mm,
Um, but it does go a long way to explain why I don't fit in and never fitted in my peers.
mm,
I always found that my childhood friends childish. At 16, I was yelling at the universe saying there's more to life than going out, getting drunk, getting laid, and dancing. I always thought there's more to life than this. I mean, what 16-year-old goes to the Chinese restaurant, has dinner before going out clubbing at 16? That was me. I love my music, I like dancing, and I never needed um, any form of alcohol or drugs to actually get up on the dance floor. I've never needed Dutch courage. If I didn't like something, I'd speak up. And when my mum and dad split, I have no recollection of any negative feelings.
mm.
But when we moved in with my grandmother said, there's a Scottish family across the road with two young girls. I'm like, okay. And one day I just walked out my grandmother's flat, walked across the road, knocked on their door and said, I've just moved in next door. And my grandma tells me there's two little girls live here. And that was Lucinda and Katie Wilson. And we had a firm friendship for many, many years. I
Yeah.
just took it upon myself. I was very strong-willed and I knew my own mind. I couldn't wait to grow up. Um, I've never wanted children. I could never see the point or the purpose in having children for me. It would
Mm.
curtail my life, and you have to give up your life to raise another human being. So I was just hell bent on experiencing life. I've never
So,
been
so
attracted.
where did this take you? So this is all in Australia,
Yep.
and so you had sort of clashes with mum, and then dad had some sort of connection because of the Pisces link.
Well, mum and dad has, if you've seen the movie The King's Speech,
Yeah, I've
that's
seen
my
that.
father. My father had a tyrant of a father, and he was a total and utter bastard. I would use worse words, but not on a podcast. I had no relationship with him. My father was a hugely, hugely damaged man because of that. He was a sensitive man. He was 6'5" with bright red hair and sky blue eyes. We had a friendship and a connection that required no words. I just implicitly understood him. And the more I got to know his backstory of what happened to him as a child, the more compassion I felt for him as an adult human being. His
Mm,
life was horrendous. And the more I learned about my mum's backstory, the more I understood how she became the person that was my mother. When you take those mother and father labels off two individuals, you can then understand how they parented. My mum had a screwdriver and a spanner, and my dad had a hammer and a bag of nails. That was their parenting toolkit. They didn't have a complete socket set in a walk-in garage with all the tools. They had bare minimum to be parents. So how the hell could they have parented me in any other way than the way they did? I'm very
yeah.
grateful.
Yeah, I mean that it's always about people behave in certain ways because of the of what influences us and what we've
Yeah.
been through and how we've been brought up. You know, it all goes down the line, isn't it? People don't do something for nothing. We don't feel something for nothing.
What
Absolutely.
as a working as a healer for 30 years, longer actually, the main thing that I discovered is, why do we place this expectation of I didn't get what I needed from my mother and my father when they were broken people anyway?
Mm.
Get Give it up, let it go. Your parents did the best job that they could under the circumstances of their childhood. And both my parents, born in Australia, especially my mum, was a very chauvinistic, misogynistic society. We were the first single parent kids in the entire school. That was a brave lady to do that. And why would I feel angry for growing up without a father when my father wouldn't have been the father that, 2.4 kids, white picket fence, this whole bloody fantasy that we sign up to, and
Isn't
this
it? Mm.
unrealistic expectations we place on our parents. Let it go and see them for the human beings that they are, damaged, flawed, in need of healing. And my mum, she yelled at me when I was 11 that you're a selfish, self-centered little bastard, and I wish you were never born. She was drunk, and I just turned on her and I went, hold on a minute, fuck you, use my language. You had one of three choices: abortion, adoption, but you had me, so deal with me. That's the way I dealt with it. Sorry about the directness, but
Yeah,
my
so
mum was sort
you're
of,
a bit polite here in the UK. Or I am, maybe.
the thing is, I knew who I was for
Mm. How old were you then?
about 11.
Wow. That's very
No,
ballsy, isn't it, for
oh,
11?
yeah, but I
Gosh.
felt driven.
Mm.
There was no thought, and there was no fall on my sword. Oh, how dare mum say that? She was right. I was a selfish, self-centered little bastard in her mind, because I was so single-minded in I was going to do what I wanted to do when I wanted to do it.
Yeah.
Another thing I did was keep my room a pigsty, as most teenagers do. And she said, get in there and clean your room. And I looked at her and I said, that is the only space in the entire universe that is mine. If you don't like it, close the door. And what could you say to that? My mum almost gave up. I used to call her from the nightclub, can I stay over at so and so's house? And if she said yes, I'd stay over. And if she said no, I'd go home. One of my saving graces. But yeah, I was just driven and I followed my intuition. I wasn't good at school, but I can hold conversations on any subject because it's not written, it's verbal, it's not written. And I've traveled to nearly 50 countries.
Wow. Was all different reasons or for traveling reason or
No, the old bastard died. My grandfather died and left me 10% of the sale of his property, which sold for 500,000 a long time ago, because it was a waterfront property. And I was just like, yes. And I
I'm
bought
gone.
I bought 3 Kentucky tours and traveled through Europe, Scandi, and Russia. I've been very fortunate with money coming to me from external sources.
Cool.
But my mum spent
Wonderful.
2 years over here before she married my dad and had kids. And she spent 2 years in St. George's tooting as a general nurse and hitchhiking
Wow.
through Europe with a girlfriend. And I used to look at her black and white photo album and I just think, why get married and have kids to an Australian homophobic, misogynistic twat and raise children when there's this world? The gene pool that I would have been marrying and having children with were most undesirable. I could never understand why someone would hate another human being based on their sexual preference, skin color, or religion. And I still don't get it. My best mate growing up was Greek Cypriot, and I couldn't call her by her nickname of Little Choc just because her skin went darker in the sunshine. I loved Christmas at Helen's and Easter because it was foreign Greek food, Greek Cypriot. I loved experimenting. I loved exploring life because life is what you choose it to be. And I just went for it. I grew to be nearly 6 foot tall, which is definite plus. So I can be very intimidating should I choose to, but I have a very natural protection of young. I've broken up fights in tubes, on trains. I speak up. I am not that bystander where people think someone else will get to it, someone else will take care of it. And I've been asked, well, what happens if someone stabs you? I said, well, that's the end of my life. I get an exit button. I'm out of here. I don't care because at the end of the day, someone has to stand up, and if not me, who? So I've always been brazen. I've always been extroverted. I've always been outspoken. I may not speak the truth, but it's my truth. And I've always thought
Main
I'm on this
things.
planet.
Mm.
I'm not on this planet to win a popularity contest. If you don't like me, choose somebody else. So when I was 16, that is when my life changed. I met a guy called Gordon Ballard, and he was 80 odd, and he was a long-haired, um, very strange hippie who was a very well-known astrologer. And I met the Down to Earth group, which was, I was 16 and everyone else was in their 40s or above. And they'd done the hippie bus from London to Kashmir overland through Afghanistan, Iraq, Iran in the
Wow.
60s and 70s. And here's me at 16 and I'm learning about crystals and chakras and yoga and, of course, my beloved astrology. And the way my mind works, osmosis, sitting, talking, just general chit chat. And also where my north and south node is, which is a karmic point in your chart. My south node being Scorpio, um, everything of the occult sciences, I'm just like, yep, this is all extremely familiar. So I've obviously had a past life doing that stuff. So North Node in Taurus means that I've got to be in the world, making money, 9 to 5, working. So I sort of meld the two. And there's a lot. I make wands and I work with crystals. I'm a Reiki tutor. I'm a massage tutor. I'm a reflexology practitioner. I don't teach reflex, but I also teach aromatherapy, which was my first major diploma in 96 when I was 30. I've been doing Reiki since I was 21. But I don't wear a lot of those on my sleeve. A lot of people don't know that I make wands and staffs. That came to me as a dream, and I sat with it and reverse engineered it. And I've made wands and staffs for many people for magical purposes. In my flat, I have quite a few large pieces of crystals. They're my friends, and I actually have a wand to make at the moment. I'm sitting with it on how to work with this because the person I'm making it for is a demonologist. In other words, he clears negative entities from homes and from places and from people. So he needs a particular combination of crystals and imagery and symbols and wood. I can't just go and cut a piece of wood off any tree. It has to be a particular tree, which is rowan. Rowan is a specific Celtic and Druid protection
Yeah.
energy. So if you're looking at fertility, you would use a different type of wood, or if you're looking for um, spell casting, you would use something else. All of that is just stuff that I've picked up over the years. I say
Mm.
stuff because there's so much information and it all sort of dovetails all together and you learn
It does. Yeah,
leads onto something else.
absolutely. So
Yeah.
you're in this group, you met this guy and you're learning from him and these
Yep.
older people and that was the beginning of your astrology path to
Yes.
learn. So he's a teacher, astrology teacher.
No, he wasn't an astrology teacher. No, he
Oh.
was an astrologer.
Mm.
And his room was like, if anyone's ever seen Catweasel, think of Catweasel. His room was just full of books and he did a caster chart the old-fashioned way, no computer,
Mm.
and it was fascinating. He also did silent movies of the hippie festivals in areas called
Oh,
Nimbin and Bellingen region of New South Wales. And so that was interesting. It was introducing me to the generation previous to me of the new lifestyle and breaking away from the traditional lifestyles that women have had to lead up till then.
yeah.
And I remember having a conversation with one particular chap who was, I believe, 45, 46. And he asked me, so like, we're just chatting about chakras and colors and yoga and stuff and reincarnation and the spiritual path, the purpose of life. Oh, I've mused on that subject many, many times. And, and he said, "How old are you?" I said, 16. He says, "Wow, I'd really like to meet you when you're my age." Well, I'm older than him now, so it would be a very interesting conversation.
Do it. Is he still around about?
I'd have no idea.
Mm.
Um, Gordon Ballard was 80 odd. He is certainly not around now. But
Mm.
the gatekeeper. He opened the door to the rest of my life because it's something that has stayed with me. And what I use the astrology for is understanding what I'm facing, like
Mm.
the emotional traumas,
Because this
the
is the thing, isn't it? It opens you up to support and guidance and
yeah,
in great detail to understand yourself, you're saying. So what you're
hugely so.
saying was you were saying that it was to understand yourself, to know why we're with certain people, why we live through
Mhm.
certain things, and what's your abilities, what's your potential, what's your sort of challenges, and what do you like in with money, with business, with work, with lovers, with
Yep,
love.
absolutely.
Mm,
And it also helps you to understand your own personality traits.
mm,
Uh, it's why certain people you clash with, how you communicate, your Mercury placement, why people might misunderstand or misconstrue what you're saying, your Mercury placement, how you have your home, your moon, your relationship with your mother, how you emotionally connect with the world and others is your moon placement, whether or not you're lazy or whether you're competitive. Mars, very simple. I want that. How can I get it?
So,
Someone who's
so, so,
very
so
driven.
let's leave this for tomorrow's class because
Okay.
and on the course of, but how did it affect you then? So you began to do astrology, but how did that affect you in your life?
It affected me by understanding who is Susan Gay Carberry. That's my full name. Who am I? And the combination of the astrology helped me to understand why I didn't fit in, why I felt like a square peg in a round hole,
Mm.
why I didn't fit in Australia. Astrocartography is the reason why I don't fit in Australia, which is where put your chart in different countries and why you feel comfortable, why you don't. It helped me understand why I clash with certain people. Why am I such a gob? Got such a gob on me. Why can't I keep my mouth shut? Why am I not ladylike? Why do I feel more comfortable in my masculine energy? Why is it for me so like going into the feminine and being feminine and the classic feminine energy of being gentle and soft? That's not natural for me. And when you look at my chart, it's all there.
And I
It
think
also,
it's so helpful, isn't it? Because
yeah.
when you understand yourself, so many things slot into place. And did it make you make that because you were in Australia at the time, were you?
Mhm.
When you met him and you
I
started
always wanted
astrology?
to get out. I never felt like I belonged in Australia. I'm very
Mm,
grateful for my childhood. It was a great childhood. I was outdoors playing around. I was on the beach every weekend being feral. I had a lot of freedom. I used to ride my push bike everywhere because the roads were safe enough to do so. I had a great childhood. Australia is the base chakra of the world, the red center. It's a very grounded culture. It's a
Mm.
very, in your face, I don't like you, bugger off, very straight talking culture, which I really appreciated. And
What's
the
what's, Eng-
Australian,
what's England then?
England is,
We're all a bit anal over here, aren't we? And can't speak and don't want to upset anyone. And
people pleasers, and it's sort of like if you look at the difference between the Australians and the English or the British way, the British way would be, would you mind not doing that? You know, that behavior is not acceptable here. The Australian would use a lot of profanity and basically put it straight. They don't package things. It's very straight. It's you can't misconstrue what an Australian is trying to impart.
very
Uh,
refreshing, you know
yes
where
and
you
no.
stand.
It's
Mm.
a hard culture because the land is hard. It's gone completely woke now, so I can't relate to the
Oh, wow.
Australians today. Yeah,
So what's Australian chakra? So if Australia is the base chakra, the red one,
yeah, yeah.
what is Britain or England chakra?
Well, Britain would be a minor chakra, but Britain is a Gemini country, and if you look at the what Britain, Gemini being information and
Oh.
innovation, the Industrial Revolution, a lot was instigated and initiated in Britain. I mean, you've got your ancient cultures as well, but when you're
Mm.
looking at the modern day, London in particular is a Gemini city, which is all information. When you look at the universities were founded, the oldest universities or the best ones are still Cambridge and Oxford and Durham. The American universities and the American education system leaves a lot to be desired, and that's putting it mildly. Look at sense of humor, satire, and sarcasm. No one has humor like Monty Python or the Goons. You know, they're original. There's that original thing. So it's very Gemini, and I've got Jupiter very prominent in my chart in London.
Mm.
So I feel very comfortable here.
So then you wanted to get out, and
Yep.
how did that happen? Where did you meet your husband? Was that over? What was the key that sort of got you out, got you to the UK?
Well, I came over in 89 because I met a sailor back in 88, 86. Sydney had its 75th anniversary, the Navy. We had 12,000 sailors running around Sydney, and they put a call out on the radios to billet the sailors off the ships, get them into homes. And my friend Kylie and her mother Lynn had 7 sailors kipping in their house. So I basically took one home. Malcolm Teague, bless you, from Somerset, or Birmingham actually, but he was living in Somerset, and he kept in my brother's bedroom. We remained friends, and I came abroad in '89, and I met his ex-sister-in-law and his ex-mother-in-law, and his ex-sister-in-law is the mother of my godchildren, and we are still firm
Oh,
friends today.
wow.
And that was on the Isle of Wight.
Mhm.
So I did a summer season over there. Then my grandfather, the old bastard, died, went home, collected me cash, and came back. And then I spent the spring and the summer of 1990 traveling through Europe, Scandi, and Russia. Then went back to the Isle of Wight. Then, after that season finished, came to London. And long story short, ended up in a pub in St John's Wood with my friend Donna, who lives in Scotland, who were my teenage friends from Sydney. She was a nanny, and I joined her as a barmaid. And that's where I met my husband. I met Tony, and I asked him out to the cinema one Monday night just as a friend, and we connected. And we were together for 33 years until he died on the 29th of November, 23.
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago, was it?
No, but he had a 10-year illness in a nursing home and 5 years at home before that. But the karmic debt that I paid him has been paid in full and then some. And his daughter caused me a lot of problems, but she was also one of my greatest teachers and soulmates. because if she didn't behave badly, I wouldn't have dug inside myself and done the healing work that was necessary.
That's it, isn't it? They say relationships are one of the biggest guides to biggest teachers,
That's the
and
only teacher.
that's the
And
only
the
teacher. Yeah,
biggest one is your relationship with self.
yeah.
The most important relationship you will ever have with anyone is the one you have with you, the man in the mirror, yourself. If you have peace within yourself, you have no need to be in someone else's face or in someone else's business. The world is in turmoil, but what can I do about it? So I'm not going to get myself in a muddle over it. This too shall pass. And when you live long enough, you see history repeating itself, because the living history, those people die, and the younger people come along and think, oh, what a great idea. And it's like, we've seen that before.
Mm. That's the thing. I mean, I'm 56 now, and I find that it's true, isn't it? As you get older and older, you see things, isn't it? You see the patterns and the cycles,
Yep.
and I don't know, 50s. I'm finding like I do healing as well and teach healing, and I find that it's making me observe myself, my life. It's making me observe people and like, what are we doing here? What's this all about? And really making me sort of think about everything. But this is my 50s, and we go through stages, don't we? Of I remember seeing
Absolutely.
this documentary one time about what we talk about when we're tens and when we're twenties and when we're thirties and forties and fifties and sixties. It was interesting because we go through different stages, don't we? But certainly
Absolutely.
learning from relationships. So you got married to Tony,
Yep.
and at this stage, by now you were a therapist. By now,
Um, I got married at 35, so I'd been an aromatherapist 5 years. We were together 9 years. I was 25 and he was 41 when we met. He was divorced. I wouldn't steal another woman's husband. I have a strong girl code. He had to be single before I even asked him out to the cinema, even. Um, it's You've got to have respect for your fellow girlfriends. Whether women need to respect women and leave other men alone. So once I'd established he was single, yeah, we hit it off, because I never connected with boys my own age. Um, so at 16, being amongst 40-year-olds, I was like, oh yeah, a pig in proverbial. I was really happy because I didn't wasn't interested in shopping. Oh, wasn't and still not interested in shopping, not interested in traditional female pursuits like
yeah.
nail salons, hair. Yes, I dye my hair, but makeup.
Mm.
It's all of those things. And I was very creative. I would make my own clothes because I'm nearly 6 foot
Oh.
tall, and I would be creative. I was always creating, and I'm a night owl, so I could stay up all night and just be fixed and creating. I was always doing something.
Mm. And
But
then you
Tony and I connected.
there it was a connection, wasn't it? And so astrology was all the way through this. You were learning alongside all these different activities, were you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Astrology has been with me ever since I first had that fated day of having my chart done with Gordon Ballard. And I used to quite frequent the astrology shop in Covent Garden. I
Mm.
would then Monday nights was spent.
Is that the one on the corner in Covent Garden? There's one right
Yep,
and
yep.
it's what was it called? I've forgotten now. They had everything in there, didn't they? Every kind of interesting book.
Well,
What
there's two
kind of
shops that sell astrology books. There's Watkins, the oldest one in Cecil Court, which runs between St Martin's Lane and Charing Cross near Leicester Square Tube. And the other one is the astrology shop, which is down in Covent Garden. There was Mysteries as well, but
mysteries?
that was more crystals, readers. But Barry, who runs the astrology shop, if there's a book about astrology, he will know.
Wow.
He's an absolute mind of information, and you can get your chart done there. Interpretation, no, but you can get it printed out. But there's a group that I was associated with called the Astrological Lodge of London that met
Yeah.
every Monday night at the
Mm.
Theosophical Society. And then COVID hit, and it's online. But I just loved Monday nights, and you just sitting there talking to astrologers, listening to um, lectures from some of the greatest astrologers going. And there was not just astrology conversations, it was the purpose of life, countries, what's going on with Israel, what's going on with America, what's going on with whatever, Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan. You would do a country chart and have a look. So astrology has always been with me, but not to the point where I wouldn't get out of bed because the moon was in the wrong place. Um, it also helped explain why you feel uncomfortable with certain people sometimes because their Pluto might be aspecting your moon. But we're going down an astrology rabbit hole here.
Yeah, difficult, isn't it? Because it's such
It's
a
fascinating.
informative. It's fascinating and such an informative subject. So we talked about so your healing part of you, that was that your sort of practical working and some money sort of side of you? And
Nope,
no.
no. Monday night back in Australia, I used to go to an evening in this sort of like crystal shop run by a lady called Kerry, and they would have a different talk. And I met a guy called Gary Sumner who taught Reiki. So at 21, I decided, yep, that sounds good. Hey ho, let's go and do some Reiki. So I did Reiki 1. I
Hmm.
then later did Reiki 2 Master and Tutor here in London, and that dovetails into the massage. I was just like a sponge soaking things up because it felt so familiar.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And I've always lived my life by following the Hansel and Gretel breadcrumbs that were in my life. And it was so strong and determined that once I made my mind up, it was like, no, talk to the hand. I'm going down this path. You can go down that path.
Wow.
Yeah.
And we talked about, how you followed your instincts, which was something that we don't always do. But maybe our
No.
instincts are screaming at us, but we don't always have the guts, really, or maybe it's just me, to act on that because of this and because of that. But you do, you follow your instincts a lot, don't you?
The reason why I follow my instincts is why I matter. I matter. And if you don't like the road I'm choosing for me, talk to the
Oh.
hand. Because when you're born a female, you're told, be a good girl, be a nice girl. We are told to not listen to our inner voice, that we have to be people pleasers. I was never a people pleaser. And that's why my mother said I was a selfish, self-centered little bastard, because I refused point blank from a very young age to do what other people expected of me unless it felt right for me.
Mm.
It got me into trouble, but quite frankly, I just didn't give a shit. And sorry to put in the vernacular, peoples, but it was like a force within me was so strong that I couldn't.
Yeah.
But I also put it down to my neurodivergent because of what was going on in my head. Now,
I wonder whether it's because you had a very different kind of parents, and it sounds like your father was a very difficult person or something.
no, I had the right parents because they gave
Yeah.
me, because my parents split and I had a weekend dad. Um,
Mm.
I had the right parents for my childhood and my upbringing
Yeah.
because they basically let me run feral. They didn't have a choice really. I suppose also if I had a child like me, I'd kill it. I was difficult.
Just say it like it is.
Yeah, but
Wow.
I felt compelled from every core of my being. And
Mm.
just because I have a vagina does not mean that I have to behave in a certain way because I witnessed
Mm.
boys getting treated differently.
Yeah.
Because, my time of night clubbing was during the AIDS crisis. The lesbians stepped up to take care of the HIV positive gay men. I saw my brother go out poofter bashing, which was horrendous. And I witnessed this ill treatment just because someone chose to love differently or was a different gender. And I didn't agree with that from a very early
Mm.
age. And that wasn't something that was taught. That was me. That was
Yeah.
something that I brought into this world with.
Mm. Mm. So you're following your instincts, and you got married
Yep.
to Tony. You came over here
Yep.
and started all the healing type of things and Reiki and that. Like a lot of therapists, we tend to learn one thing and then get interested in another thing and then another thing, and that
Mm-hmm.
leads to another thing. So it sounds like you did something similar as well. You learned lots of different healing techniques.
Yes, when in 96, my mother died in the UK in 94, and my father followed on the same day 7 years later, and they split
Oh
when I was
wow!
about 6.
Wow!
Yeah. So I was like, thanks,
Same
Dad.
day.
Single death day anniversary. What a
Wow!
result. And I was wondering whether Tony would go on the same day so I'd get a hat trick. Always use humor. When moment we're born, there is an exit button for us, and we get precious about it. And it's like, don't wait, act now, enjoy that. But
Mm.
my mum died and left me 20K, another inheritance. And I ended up sitting in an aromatherapy interview for the Tisserand Institute. And Wendy Jago, the course director, she said to me, "So, Sue, why have you chosen to be an aromatherapist?" I said, "I don't know. All I know is I've got to be here." That was my response. And I said, "Have you had an aromatherapy massage?" I said, "No." "Well, may I suggest you have one before you start your course?" My hands are my tools. I've always created with my hands. I'm incredibly strong with my hands.
Did you say you're Pisces?
Hmm.
Is it Pisces of the hand? No, hands are what is that?
Feet.
What's
Pisces rules the feet. Hands, digits, fingers is Mercury, which is Gemini.
Mercury?
Yeah. But I just have an affinity for body work.
Mm,
And I discovered that I need to work in the heavier end of the spectrum. So I do a lot of deep tissue. I've never been pregnant and have no interest. So I didn't specialize in women's health, in reproductive, sportsmen
Which,
and women, yes.
which
And
is very typical for reflexologists. I mean, as you know, in where we used to work together, guys, and well, in the same place, I should say, and reflexology is known to help women in pregnancy for pregnancy
mm,
issues.
yeah,
I never sort of got into that quite myself
no.
either, but it's well renowned for pregnancy issues, isn't it?
It's fantastic. And I have worked with some pregnant women at Reflections to bring on labor as soon as possible. And I've showed them where to massage. But I did some Chinese massage because I went to China on a study trip in 89
Oh
and
wow.
98 at least, and discovered Tuina. And I thought I really have to study this. So I
Mm,
haven't done the theory. I did the theory, but I haven't held on to it. But I've
yeah.
held on to the practical, which I integrate. So I've
I can
done
totally see you doing that because it's very firm technique, isn't it? It's very tough technique to
it's
you have to be tough
um,
to do that.
yeah, it's there's a lot of hooking in. I've got very straight thumbs. So when you hook in, and that's as far as my thumb will go back. So I can hook it in, and there's a lot of this sort of thing and reinforce where you put your thumb like this and then push down. And there's a lot of movement. So there's a lot of wiggling around, lifting legs up and loosening hips.
Mm.
I have a professional footballer I see at home when he calls for my massage skills. I just went with what I was good at,
Mm.
and I work with healthy and wealthy, band-aid them, send them back to the office. And it's a constant income stream, and I relate to that.
Mm.
Um, I'm a tough love type of person, so someone who is more delicate in their psyche, I'm not the best therapist for them. But if you
Mm.
want to move forward and you want to really do some healing work and you want some tough love, hey, I'm the person to kick your butt. But I will also provide that safe space for you to be vulnerable and feel safe to open up. Because at the end of the day, we're all on our healing journey.
We are, and you said something really beautiful just before the call, which I wrote down. I'm sure I can't read my writing, but you said everything we do in life, we have choice, and it leads to who we are today.
Yeah,
Everything we choose, every
yep,
aspect,
yes.
and and also our traumas. are necessary for growth. And I thought that was a really
Yes.
important point that you raised,
Yeah.
said, because a lot of the time, I mean, I teach pain free that to connect with your problems because the release of them is in the problem, the solution's in the problem. And I guess that's a bit like this, isn't it? The traumas are necessary for, sorry, for growth. And in the West,
Mm-hmm.
we're taught that your problems are something to get rid of, make it go away.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the opposite of learning. That's the
Mm-hmm.
opposite of healing. And
Yep, this too
I,
shall
I,
pass.
I guess they're trying to be the middleman, aren't they, to give us drugs and operations and things, and make us in fear, and to give away our power, so that we need them. We need the drugs, and we can't cope without somebody or something or some crutch. I guess it's that, but that's not true life. That's not how the body functions, or our souls function, is it? Traumas
No.
are necessary for growth, and our
Yep.
trials and tribulations. That's where our strengths come from, isn't it? If we look back at our lives and what we've dealt with or experienced. I mean, I'm a very sensitive thing, and double Pisces. You know all about that. I'm learning. What is that? I keep getting told I'm a double Pisces, whatever that is. But I'm very sensitive and easily swayed. But I went through a very contained life, an army family, and um, so couldn't really speak about your feelings really, and you had to be something practical and get on with it, and either marry a rich man or have a amazing career and have a business or something. You're high expectations, so it was all a bit very structured for double Piscean to negotiate around that, navigate around that. But then that sent me inside and into all the information that I learned and experienced.
Mm-hmm.
I give it out.
Yep.
I feel these days, now that I'm 50s, I realize I'm lucky, and um, that honed my skill, that compression. So it's not um, maybe at the time it's tough what things we go through, but it ultimately it forms us. It makes us.
Human beings don't come into their own when they're young. That's why women have menopause. Menopause in elephants, orcas, and humans is because of education. If we don't, if our whole lives are accumulation of trials, tribulations. Pain is what transforms us. Pain is our friend, because without pain, we do not turn inwards. When it's tickety boo and the sun's shining and everything's absolutely marvelous, we're not doing the work. And why are we here in the human form? We're here to learn duality and separation by being in a body that is diametrically opposed to men or women.
Mm.
We think differently, we experience life differently, our genitalia is different, our orgasm and enjoyment of sex is almost opposite. So we're in this world to learn separation and duality and ego. And the only way to do that is humanity. When we die, we go back to source, and it's great. I look forward to my exit button because I know what's over the other side of my experience of what I've seen and experienced through life, which is, yeah, I've always seen spirit, but it's internal, not external. Like the only best way to describe it is like a transparency over what I'm looking at now through these eyes, and an inner knowing and an inner voice. I've always had it. I don't know what life is like without it. But one
Mm.
thing I do know, and what I was talking about when I was 16, is that you choose your parents, you choose your culture, you choose your time of birth, and you choose your gender. And that combination gives you your lessons to learn for your soul growth as me, Susan Gay Carberry. My soul growth came from the choice of who I came into and through, and the family of origin, my mama, my dad, my brothers, my aunts, my uncles, everything. But we
Mm.
also have free will.
Yeah.
So the free will is why we stay in bad relationships when the little voice in our head is saying, get out, get out.
Mm.
Why we walk down that dark road when the voice is going, no, you don't want to be here, get off the bus, get off the train, get on the train,
Mm.
get on. when we don't listen to that, and as women and little girls, we're taught not to. A story I tell is a metaphor. My brother and I have to say goodbye to Auntie Doris and Uncle Peter. And my brother says, I don't want to kiss Auntie Doris goodbye. She's got whiskers, and it's the family laugh and they think it's funny. But my brother's encouraged to give Auntie Doris a kiss goodbye on the cheek. Then it's my turn. I'm hiding behind my mum's legs. I don't want to go and say goodbye to Uncle Peter and give him a kiss. Be a good girl. Be a nice girl. Go on. Don't be like that. Don't be like that. Why am I being like that? Because Uncle Peter's a pedo and he's been feeling me up every time I've kissed him goodbye. We are taught as little girls to be good girls, be nice girls. So when I was growing up, I'm like, no, fuck that for a game of soldiers. Excuse my language once again. But that's how I felt inside, and I was not going to be moved by it. So when I'm doing work with women now in my 50s, almost on the verge of my 60s, I'm doing more and more work with women in menopause to help them find their inner no, fuck off. Because we need to use that energy. And I use profanity because it's how strong women feel when we're in our menopause. We're sick and tired. I've never had that, but I'm experiencing that around me. And I'm sort of giving a bit of that I've always had to
Yeah.
women to find their power, to find their boundaries. And I find myself working a lot with women. I work a lot with men in my private practice, and that's teaching men about women because I understand both sides. And I talk to men about women. Men and women are different. And I discovered early on, if I'm discussing with women, I'll say, oh, Althea, how do you feel about that? And I get a great response because women are in relationship. One thing women have got to stop doing is saying how we feel when we're asked a question and say what we mean. Men don't do that. When you're talking to men, you don't say, how do you feel about that? Unless he's a gay man. Then you say, oh, what do you think? And you'll get a response. So just by changing those two things, I learned at an early age, don't ask a man or a boy how he feels, ask him what he thinks, and you'll get a response. When you're talking to a woman, I have to go through how she feels about something because she's in relationship with that thing, and you'll get an emotional response. And then I'll start to figure out what she actually means by that. And because I speak like a man in a female body, men, I relate to men, and I don't have too much problem with them. And with women, I'm like, get to the point. What are you trying to make? Because we're taught at an early age, we're gagged, you see. How we feel about something is our personal relationship to Uncle Peter. I feel creeped out by him. Well, what do you mean? We don't come out and say he's a pedophile or he touches me or he makes me feel horrible. Oh, don't be silly.
Yeah.
But then at the same token, we don't want to lose what makes us female and feminine and turn into hypermasculine females. But
Absolutely. It's a
I've never
journey.
fitted in, so I'm not about to start now.
It's a journey, isn't it? All our lives, it's a journey.
Absolutely. It's a huge journey
It
and it
really is.
doesn't stop.
Mm. And it doesn't stop.
No. But
It's
use humor.
mm,
Use humor.
yeah.
You know, there's not a person on this planet that doesn't go to the bathroom. There's not a person. Here's one that's, this is not mine, but here's one about humanity. We all pick our nose. The difference is whether or not you eat it.
We're getting a full-on dose of Australian tonight.
That's not my expression, but I love it because every kid that as we're taught not to, but it's sort of like there are certain bodily functions that make us human.
Yeah.
Yet we deem, like in Japan, you don't fart, you don't burp, you cover your mouth. There are certain niceties. And then you go to an Arab country, you don't show or Thailand, you don't show the soles of your feet.
Mm.
Every human being that I've ever interacted with want the same two things. Love. to make love, to experience love, because love in its purest form is just the most amazing thing. Making passionate love to someone you absolutely adore is heaven. There's no heaven when you die. It's all heaven, and hell is here in the physical form. It's beautiful on the other side. And hell is when you don't live to your fullest. And every human being wants inner peace, and that inner peace brings happiness. And when you have inner peace and you take personal responsibility for your life, it's so much easier. Don't get me wrong, I do get upset. I do feel things profoundly. The recent lunar eclipse hit my moon. I had two massive lessons recently, but I had to laugh. It's like when I thought that I was something. Oh God, what a humbling experience. But every human wants exactly the same two things, unless they're a psychopath, a narcissist, or have the distinct lack of capacity of empathy, which is usually someone neurodivergent or autistic. They can't always feel empathy. But if they don't fit into those categories, every human wants the same things.
Mm. Sue, so where does it take you now? Where's your life? Do you
Oh,
live in the moment, or is it? I know you
live
lived
in the
in
moment.
Sydney.
I had a client earlier today. I've got a client tomorrow, my podcast tomorrow. I've got clinic on Saturday. I booked to see a exhibition by Grayson Perry next Thursday. Um, at the end of the month, I'm going to the Cartier one. I just, whatever takes my fancy and I can afford it, I indulge. And I just trust that the right clients will find me. The right amount of money will find me because I'm a good person and I deserve good things. But I believe that to the core of my being. It's not just a mantra. I know
Mm,
who I am.
mm,
And when you know who you are to the core of your being, nothing else matters. What Trump is doing in America, what can I do? I don't like it. I vote with my feet. I don't buy American goods. If you don't like what's going on with Israel and Palestine, vote with your feet, vote with your pocket. Because you as an individual can't change anything, but you can send healing. I can work with, I've worked with PTSD with some soldiers who have seen active duty and police officers. I work as a healer,
mm.
and it doesn't matter where someone's from.
Give your skills out there, and I think that's part of our human experience too. We all have skills and gifts and ways that we're our
Yeah,
abilities, and I
and they're
think
all different,
they're all different. And I think part of our human experience is to share those gifts and be of service, as they say.
but not to the extent where you go yourself. There are some healers that give too much and end up ill
Yeah,
because what a true healer does is hold space. And
mm,
when you hold space, it's a non-judgment space, and that's when the magic happens because the client is free to be exactly as they need to be in that moment.
exactly. Non-judgment, isn't it? Leaving space, be objective.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Wonderful, Sue. That's perfectly timed for 8 o'clock, and that was fascinating. That was lovely, taking us through a little snapshot of your life and the journey that's got you to this place. And
Mm-hmm.
thank you so much. It was very interesting and inspiring. And
Oh, you're
just
welcome.
fantastic. So just to say, to remind everybody who's watching this and who's on here, that Sue is our resident astrologer at PainFree, and she offers a free year's course of monthly classes on astrology. And tomorrow is the next class, so do come along to the
Yep.
next class. She's an absolute whiz. She's an absolute. You can feel her energy, her drive, and her mission. I'm sure. And she's just incredibly knowledgeable about astrology. So, and it's free. It's absolutely fantastic. And in between the calls, we have a WhatsApp where you can share your chart and get it read and learn how to read it and see what's this and what's that. And I mean, the information is just pouring in there. So it's a constant dip. You can involve yourself into the course as much as deep as you want. And Sue is
Mm-hmm.
incredibly knowledgeable. So I do recommend to come on the course tomorrow. But meanwhile, Sue, thank you so much for letting us into your world a little bit,
Oh,
and
you're welcome. If anyone's got any
fascinating.
questions, don't hesitate. Join the WhatsApp group and feel free. I'm an open book. I don't hide anything. You
Okay,
want to know, just ask.
just ask. I'm afraid to.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. So we'll bring it to a close for this evening. Do join us on the astrology course tomorrow if you're feeling called. And meanwhile, thank you so much for everybody for joining the podcast this evening,
You're
and thank you
welcome.
Sue, for sharing your wonderful world. Thank you so much. Have a beautiful
Pleasure.
evening, everybody. Thank you.
Go well. Bye, bye.